The views expressed in this interview are those of the individuals and do not reflect the official policy or position of the U.S. government, the Department of Defense, the U.S. Navy, or the Naval Postgraduate School. The Trident Room has been brought to you by the Naval Postgraduate School Alumni Association and Foundation. For questions, comments, and suggestions, please email us at tridentroompodcasthost@nps.edu and find us online at nps.edu/tridentroompodcast. Welcome to the Trident Room, brewer of stout conversation, unfiltered and on tap. In today's podcast, NPS student Joe Novak sits down and has a drink with U.S. Army Special Forces officer Jonathan Fagins.
Yeah, so like I said, you confuse me. You wear an Army uniform, you went to the Naval Academy, you did SEAL training, you're an SF officer. I feel like I'm talking to three people right now in front of me. Could you give me a rundown of how that all happened?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the best place to start is to start in my home. So I grew up in Orange County, California. My mom and dad, they raised us, family first. We went to church every Sunday. Education, make sure you're always getting, good grades. No matter what you're doing, you're standing out and you're being true to yourself and you're representing the family. So we played sports. And so when I was in high school, I had a coach, and just by my demeanor, his name was Coach Rao. God bless him. He passed away a while back. He said, "John, I think you'd be a good fit for West Point," because he saw my demeanor, and I was just really, taking charge of things on the field. And so he got me in touch with a recruiter, and the recruiter asked me, you play a lot of sports, and you're involved in community service, you'd be a great candidate. And so I did all the paperwork, did all the application process. I'd apply for a congressional nomination. So I guess I didn't know that, but you need a congressional nomination to go to the Service Academy. And so I guess it came down to SAT scores. So here I am. I did, I was a 3.5 GPA average.
Nice. Community
service, did tons of different activities, sports. Took the SATs. I had the lowest SAT. I had like a 800. Mm-hmm. I think that's just by writing your name. And for some reason, like I didn't do well at tests. Like me timed on a test is like the worst thing you could do. Like for me, I'd rather run 10 miles. And so I went to this prep school. It's called Northwestern Prep School in Malibu, California. It's next to Pepperdine, and it was designed to help me with my SAT scores. So I took the SAT test, took it 3 times, same score, and they were like, "Hey, what's wrong, John? Like, we're helping him." I think it went up like a little bit. There was a guy that came. I'm forgetting his name right now, but it'll come to me later. He was a recruiter. Tom Tashura is his name. Awesome, and he knew about my story, and so he came. He interviewed me, and he goes, "John, I'm gonna help you out." And so after that, I went to prep. Prep school was only five months long, so I went to a Cypress Junior College to finish out my academic during the spring. And so I got a call from somebody and say, "Hey, John, since you have bad SAT scores, you're going to have to change the way people view about you." And so he goes, "Do whatever it takes." And so those words were like, "Okay, this is on. It's on." And so I literally wrote to every single board member, teacher, professor. I wrote to the staff. I even wrote to the president and the Congress leaders. And I said, "Hey, look, I just want to go to the Naval Academy. Here's all my academic transcripts. Here's all the, sports write-ups, recommendations from other professors, counselors, teachers. I just want to get there. Just give me an opportunity." And so I did. I kept on sending letters, and then I get a call. It's at 5. It's like 6 in the morning on a Friday, and it's from one of the board members. And he said, "Is this Mr. Fagins?" I go, "Yeah, yes it is." I go, "Yeah, we understand you want to come here, but can you stop sending letters? You're making a lot of people upset." I'm like, and at the back of my mind, like I smile. I'm like, "That's what I want. I want to make people upset." And so I go, "Yes, sir." And after I got the phone with him, I kept on sending more letters to the same people.
Awesome.
And so a couple weeks goes by, I didn't hear anything. I get kind of depressed. And then Tom Tashura gives me a call early in the morning. He goes, "John, is this a right time to call?" I go, "Yes, sir." I go, yes, sir. And he goes, I just want to let you know that you got accepted to the Naval Academy Prep School, which guarantees you admission to Naval Academy. Congratulations. And I started crying.
Dude, you're gonna make me choke up.
Yeah,
Oh
like-
my God.
I started crying.
That's awesome.
Woke up my parents, and I think a lot of it was because I saw a few months ago I saw a movie called Rudy, and it talked about a guy that no matter what happened and the challenges that he faced, he never gave up, even if his family didn't believe that he can do it. Like, he still did it, and I think that was my case. Like, I had met members that were close to me that said that didn't believe in me by their actions. And I think that pushed me even harder. So, yeah, I'm getting kind of emotional. So praise God. I got to the prep school, and here I am at the prep school, Newport, Rhode Island, playing football at the prep school. So it's only a 1-year gig. And then, so that was a great learning experience as far as understanding the academic load and also the military aspect. And so the following year, got to Naval Academy. First year is always a hard year. Of course, all service academies, plebe year, you get crushed. I mean, that's, it's indoctrination phase. But that was like my first, my first exposure to like Division I football. Like, when I was a kid, I used to always watch Notre Dame and Florida State, USC, and to see how these guys were athletes. But now I got to, here I am. I'm actually in the locker room training, and so it was a very real experience for me. So I went through my 2-3 years, and when I was doing that, I ran into a couple guys that I always saw them either running, they're swimming, training, and I always wondered what they were doing. And I asked one of them, Clint Bruce, and he said he wanted to be a SEAL. And I asked him, what's a SEAL? And he goes, well, he kind of laughed at me, and he goes, well, I remember the phrase he said, John, I just love I love crawling through the mud. I'm like, you know what, I want to do that. And so I realized a lot what SEALs do, and so that's the avenue that I took. So, and here it is, the Orange County guy. I didn't know how to swim, but I just know how to I know how to float in the water. I just didn't know how to swim. And so I had a buddy, his name's Clint Cornell. He's a Navy EOD guy. He taught me how to swim. And here I am, swimming, waking up early, playing water polo, training, running, doing pull-ups, just trying out to become a SEAL. And they only select 16 out of each class. They only select 16 guys to go to SEAL training
Out of the academy.
out of the
is that
Naval
right?
Academy.
Wow.
So it's it's a pretty small group of guys, and so you really have to. Everything has to be perfect, and it's based on interviews, and they do like a pre mini buds test to see if you're qualified. So I went to pre-mini buds, went to Coronado, which was awesome. I got to freeze with some guys, had a great time out there, and just kind of also gave me exposure to kind of see what if this is what I wanted to do, and it definitely was. So here it is. It was I think it was called selection night. It was in February, and that's when they tell everyone what they're doing. And I got selected, and I just screamed. They had all of us called the wardroom. And they were saying everyone's name, and they told them what they got, and everyone knew, like the entire school knew what I was trying to go be a SEAL. And so I would never forget it. As they read my name, it was like you could hear a pin drop, and they said Spec War, and I screamed. I'm like, ah! I ran outside, grabbed my other buddy. His name's Tico Crowfoot. He's currently a SEAL. Gave him a hug. Hey, dude, I'm coming. And so I'm getting ready to go, and then 9/11 hits. And that was that shook me to the core. My sister lived in New York, Manhattan, and she was jogging right before the towers got hit. Mm-hmm. She was jogging through the area, and then couldn't find out she was okay. But that had a significant impact. And like, okay, it's on. It's
real now.
It's
yeah.
real. It's serious. And so I went to Buds, following that. In Buds, it's just a kick in the nuts. That's the best way to explain it. They really challenge you physically, mentally, almost even spiritually. But I needed to stay grounded, and what my mom and dad taught me, like, don't give up no matter what. And so I went through Buds, went through. There's several different phases: first, second, third phase. First phase in doc. Second phase is the dive phase. Third phase land warfare. Went through all that. Graduated. then went through SQT, SEAL qualification training, and then after one of the last tests, they pulled me inside and said, "We're not going to let you continue because we see some things that aren't going to allow you to continue training." And so at this point, I was like disheartened, and I was like, you know what? Well, this is still my dream, so I'm going to do whatever I can. Went out to the fleet, literally from that, I walked over to San Diego, or drove over to San Diego, Pier 39, found a cruiser, because I talked to a buddy. He goes, "John, if you want to become a SEAL, you should go to surface, get your surface corps pin. You'll learn some things, and you'll try to come back." I'm like, you know what? I need to learn. You're right. I need to better myself as a leader, and then come back. And so that's what I did. I went out to one of the ships out there, warships. Found the USS Port Royal. Spent about a year there working to get my SWO pin. At the end of the day, it didn't work out. And so I tried to do a direct transfer over to the Army. At the time, I guess it was the height of the war that was going on, and there was the response that I got was there was too many infantry officers, and so I tried to go direct into Special Forces. My sister's friend said, "Hey, John, I think you'd be better fit for Army, for a Green Beret." And so after that road didn't, after trying to go direct and they said I couldn't, I had to do a lat transfer. So I got out of active duty Navy, went through Navy Reserve, transferred to Army Reserve, then transferred through Army National Guard. And then then I went through the Q course. I got picked up.
You went, say that again. That's interesting.
So I went through the Navy. I got out at Navy Active, transferred from Navy Active to Navy Reserve out of Hawaii. Went to a reserve unit, transferred to an Army Reserve unit, 442nd 100 Battalion out of Fort Shafter, Hawaii. And then from there, I was at an Army Reserve unit, transferred to an Army National Guard unit, which is the 19th Special Forces Group National Guard unit out of Los Alamitos, California. And then from there, went to active duty. So I had to go.
Oh, that's amazing. I can't imagine the pile of paperwork you had to plod through to make that happen.
It was. It took about 5-6 years. It took a lot of work, a lot of effort. Yeah.
And what drove you during this time? How did you keep that North Star in sight?
I think for me, I was just determined. Like if I got one thing, and I guess that's one thing about me. Like if I'm determined on getting something done, I'm gonna do it. Like no matter what's in my way. And I think that's just something that God's given me, just to be persistent, have self-discipline, and have a plan, and to be determined, and to use all your resources available, and just don't take no for an answer. Those are things that I kind of learned growing up, and also just to never give up. And you can always fail, but just fail falling forward is probably the best advice that I was given. Yeah. So I got into Special Forces, went to the Q course, graduated from the Q course, and got stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I guess when I was going through the Q course and I got selected to be in Special Forces, a lot of things were like coming into play. It was like, you know what, this I felt a belonging. Like this is where I belong. It was just different. It was just different, and I think I was at a different place, but also I just being a part of a brotherhood that I saw reminded me of what I saw playing football in the Navy. It was like a guys, all walks of life coming in, but they all had a very specific, like, get the job done attitude, and I like that.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that you had played varsity football for the Naval Academy.
Yeah, that was a pretty unique and pretty awesome experience. I got to know. I can almost say like I changed through because I went to the prep school to play football. I got recruited for 7 different schools and went to the prep school, Naval Academy, in Newport, Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. And then just seeing the figures, Clint Bruce and the quarterback, famous quarterback, it jogs my memory right now. But to see them come in, I was like, hey, these guys I'm seeing on TV. And then I'm out there wearing the uniform, and it's awesome. And it's true. It's all about the brotherhood, because the guys that we sweat, I'm sweating with, and I'm pumping iron at 6 in the morning doing sprints. and it's like 50 degrees out, and it's like these guys I'm gonna remember for the rest of my life, and like it's so true. And then also the built up, like the Army Navy game, like it's crazy. Like I had no idea like how big it was coming from here. I am, Orange County, California, and clear across the other side of the country. Army Navy game, never heard of it. And then here I am playing for like the first game, like literally like all like services like literally stopped just to watch that game, just the impact of that game where you are literally in the trenches battling out like who's gonna win. And then at the very end, we're all brothers. Like we're all hugging and we're singing each other's songs as much as we hate each other.
Yeah. So that being said, so what was your record playing against the Army?
So we were 3-1 when we played.
Nice.
When we played against Army. It was. I remember the game that we lost. It was we were in Philadelphia playing at the Memorial Stadium, and we were up by halftime. I think it was third quarter. And on the Army side, they had a bunch of fans hanging on a part of their scaffolding, and the scaffolding just fell. Literally everything just kind of stopped, and we saw in one moment you saw a bunch of cadets on the ground.
Oh no! Was everyone okay?
Yeah, everyone was okay. Like the ambulance came in. It was like almost like a 10-15 minute delay, but that was like a huge momentum shift. Except for like everyone felt sorry for West Point, and all of a sudden here we start losing again. So it was a huge shift. So I kind of blame it on that. But all funniness aside, it was a great game. And then again, it was amazing to see like the guys that come in after. Like I had Roger Starbuck, Napoleon McCallum. We had generals, admirals come in and talk to us after the game to show like the meaning of the spirit of the Army Navy game, the rivalry, the long gray line, like the mids, like the meaning and the history that goes back way before us. I mean, it's pretty to be a part of that. It's pretty unique, and to see the culture being, you played football for Navy. Oh wow, really? It's pretty awesome. It's a pretty cool fraternity to be in, and again, I still keep in touch with the guys. We took the kids to a previous a game last year. It was awesome. Had a great time. My Coach Niamat, so the current coach, he was my offensive coordinator. He's awesome. He's a player's coach, and they did really well. So it's one of those things like, as a Navy football player, even though I'm in the Army, as crazy as that sounds, but
yeah, we're gonna get into that because you confused the hell out of me.
Like I still want a rivalry to be. I still want like both sides to do well, as crazy as that sounds. But I still want Navy to be on top because it's like that's my alma mater.
Where's the Air Force fit into this? I've always wondered about the Air Force Academy versus the other two services.
Yeah, so the Air Force, it's pretty new. I won't say the rivalry is not as deep. Like when we play the Air Force, it's just one of those things where, hey, well, look, we want the Commander in Chief's trophy, so we got to beat West Point and obviously Air Force. But it's not as deep as it is playing Army, because literally you walk into the Navy, you walk into our gym, on every single plate it says "Beat Army." I mean, it is across every wall, everywhere you see on campus, you just see "Beat Army." So it's just pretty. It's pretty funny. But going back to the Air Force, it's not as I don't know. It's just not as, I guess the culture it's just not as deep, or the traditions there. But it still matters.
What's the overall historical record like from the first Army Navy game?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
You can make it up.
Yeah, I think Navy's winning. So I'll say this: since 2001, there was like a 14-year winning. Navy's been winning 14 years, and then Army won back to back, and then Navy won. So it's just, but I think Navy's up. By 20 or so games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you do a quick kind of compare and contrast between SEAL Spool Up, BUDS, and what have you, and the Army courses you had to go through?
Yes. So BUDS, if I had to do a contrast between BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL, and the Special Forces Qualification Course, also known as the Q course, I would say that for me, BUDS at the time that I went through was very physically demanding, but it was almost like to see if you're worth it, like physically. The Special Forces Q course was almost mentally challenging, more so physically, and I think it's because and this is just my bias and my experience, and I just think it's compared different. It's just different. So Special Forces were designed to for internal defense, or we're designed to go out, live with our indigenous partners, assist, build partner capacity, and the way we do the training is very compared to that nature. The SEALs is almost a direct action focus as I look parts. So it's very physically demanding. Blow open doors, go in, take care of what you got to take care of, and get out. But as far as the special forces, you are living, breathing, eating, and so understanding their language, understanding their culture, and understanding how to live with your consequences. Every decision that you make, there's a consequence, either positive or negative. And so by going through, for example, Robin Sage, which is a pretty awesome. So Special Forces Qualification course, obviously the first part, you do, infantry tactics. Then the second part that I went through back in 2008, you do an MOS portion. So the 18 alphas, there's different MOSs. 18 alphas, the officers went through an 18 alpha course where you do mission planning. Primary focus is on mission planning because as an officer, as an 18 alpha, you're there to mission plan, to help your guys mission plan and to help your guys indigenous forces mission plan. You're the thinker. You're the brain. There's other guys that do other specific jobs. We have weapons. We have the communication. We have a medic. But your job there is to plan, strategic. So that I would say that's the biggest thing. And so after that, then we go into MOS, where after following MOS, you go into language, where we learn a specific language on the region that we're going to, and then you go right into Robin Sage. Robin Sage is probably the biggest exercise on the East Coast. So it's they send in ODAs, and they send it to anywhere in North Carolina, South Carolina, and they have to help their indigenous forces build partner capacity. So help them with their defense posture, and then help them overcome whatever obstacle is in front of their way. So that's resistance, strengthening their resistance networks, or so have you. The best thing about Robin Sage is that every action that you take is you see the consequences, and that is perfect because you don't see that because it could be life and death. And so what I enjoy and what I like about Robin Sage is they give you a taste of what you might see out in Iraq, Afghanistan. And so that's why that environment is very it's almost like active learning because you get to see the consequences of what you're doing, as opposed to the SEALs. The SEALs don't have that because again it's more mission. They're more kinetic, mission focused as far as direct action. So you don't get to see that, and so I kind of thrived in that Robin Sage area. Because I was able to kind of understand my indigenous partners, understand the problems that they're facing, put myself in their shoes, and be able to make a better decision-making based upon that. So I think that was more effective.
And so all the lessons you learned during SF training, give us some examples of what you did real world.
So I graduated from the Q course in February, went to third group. I was stationed on ODA, a dive team, and we were scheduled to deploy to Afghanistan. So within, I would say about 5 months from graduating, I deployed to Afghanistan with the team, which is pretty quick. And some guys are deploying right away. So I had the opportunity to deploy with a group of guys, all young guys. And so here I am. We get to Kandahar, we get to Tarankal, and we're going to stand up a village stability operations just north of Kandahar. And so the Afghans at the time, they didn't have a local built-up police. And so we had to literally take, scrounging around, looking for village elders, looking for men to help build their force. And so that's what we're doing. One of the things that I had to do was build rapport. So as a U.S. face, you're jumping into someone else's country, and you're there, and you're pretty much asking them, "Hey, look, I'm here to help you." And they're looking at you. Okay, how do you help us? So building rapport was huge. And so I think within 2-3 weeks, we had a med cap, giving medical facility or providing them medical care. But I think that one of the biggest things was there was a little boy. I think he was 4 years old, and he got attacked by a dog. And the dog had made a huge gash on his face and on his scalp. And it was almost a life and death scenario. So I had called up to my hire and said, "Hey, look, we need a medevac." And I gave him the situation.
Great. And
I told him, this is what I need. I need a helicopter. I need to medevac him and his dad and get him help. I got pushback. But finally I got the call from, I think, General Bulldog at the time. He approved it, Don Bulldog, and it was awesome. So we got the helicopter. It was like 9:00 at night. Helicopter came down, medevaced. My medics did an awesome job. The 18 Deltas are our medics.
Mm-hmm.
They did an awesome job of just providing aid until the helicopters came in, and they swooped in. We loaded them up, and then they flew off. So here it is, about 4 weeks later. The elder comes, and he wanted to say thank you, and I'm like, thank you. What did we do? And he goes, thank you. The boy survived, and the dad just wanted to say thank you. And so here it was, at another meeting. We went up there, and the boy was hit where I was right there, playing with his dad. And for me, that was, and it was weird because the side of us, you could see the scar where the dog had scratched, and there was hair. And so, to me, that was like a small victory. And you could see the smile on his dad's face, even though they were more hesitant, but you could just see that, thank you. And I was like, wow. I mean, that small gesture went a long way. So
that's awesome. Is there, I'm curious, I mean, you are the epitome of where there's a will, there's a way. You had mentioned earlier that every decision has consequences. Are there any, operationally, did you ever make any bad decisions, had bad consequences, and you had to fix the situation?
I was here I am. I'm the SOFLI, Special Operation Forces Liaison in Niamey, Niger. I worked at the U.S. Embassy, and all the SOF operations that is carried out in the country of Niger. I'm like the direct conduit from Special Operations Command Africa and AFRICOM, and so at the time Boko Haram was becoming. It was in 2014 was becoming a huge terror group. I mean, they're just raping and pillaging everything they can get their hands on. And so what had happened, it was on the border of Niger border in Difa that they were coming across from Nigeria, and they were coming north. And so we had a team that was stationed there in Difa. I guess what had happened is that why the Boko Haram were coming across the border, I was not. I was not around. I didn't get the message that they needed support. That we had a team down there and they needed support, and so the AOB commander had to go direct. I think he had to go direct to South Africa to get permission so he can go out. When I finally got back, I realized that what was happening. I was able to jump on and try to, take at the time, get permission from them. We were already going in, and so at the time, get more approval and assurance from the U.S. ambassador. And so I think looking back, as a liaison, communication is huge because no matter what happens, something can go wrong, and you need to be available. And so I think for me, I wasn't available at that time. And if I had a chance to do it all over again, I would have made sure that like every communication effort was on me, on my person, just so I can assist the guys that are out there, because they're out there, and I'd hate to put them in a position where they don't have approval, where they could do something to protect themselves and to protect our guys that they're with. So I think that was probably the biggest one.
So 2014 rolls around.
Mm-hmm.
You're still in Africa?
Yes.
Okay. What was your knowledge of what was going on in Crimea?
So it was coming in. Obviously, Boko Haram was pretty big, and Mali was starting to go off. And so with Crimea, all we knew was that there was an issue in Crimea. Russia, there was some protests that started. It started out to be a protest, and then Russian military got involved. And so SOCUR and UCOM really, things started to really speed up. And that became like the next hot spot. And I'll almost say that we're almost on two different planets, because in Africa, they say it's a venture con because literally every day it's something new. And there could be, it could be an uprising, there could be a protest, there could be a coup, which makes things, make your job a lot more exciting. But in Europe, specifically most of the countries there, it's very rare that you're getting a coup or at any day. So, but to hear like a Crimea pop up, my only thought was, okay, that's probably Russia's They're doing, hybrid warfare. Something's going on. So I didn't really pay that much attention to it.
After Africa, how did you get from Africa to NPS?
So, great question. So, spent 3 years at Special Operations Command Africa, SOC Africa. Had an awesome time in Germany, and then also traveling, and then just traveling to all the countries, to seeing kind of like there's other parts of the world other than the U.S. It was a pretty amazing experience for me and my family. I got orders to the headquarters for Special Forces Command at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and so I got to see from an enterprise perspective how big and what are we doing. And so we have all the active duty groups, and we have the civil affairs, and we also have the PSYOPs as a full picture, as a full enterprise, as a full tribe. What are we doing as a whole? So I really get to understand, the authorities, policy, and how things are kind of working. Right when I got there, I'll answer your question. Right when I got there, Syria hit, and so Syria was going ISIS. So I went out to Syria to be the Task Force South LNO. That was a pretty awesome experience to work with the guys out there, the Kurds, and spend some time with them. We had 5th Group out there at the time, so it was pretty cool to see what those guys were doing. They were doing some great work. By the time I got back, I had prepared my replacement so good that she took over my job for good. So I really didn't have a job, and so I came back and they said, "Okay, John, you're gonna help out the 3-7, so training, exercise and training." I'm like, "Okay, great. I know nothing about exercise and training." So we finished Fort Bragg and we head over to NPS. So as a 10th Group, our main problem set is Russia, and so with Russia as Russia the current adversary, and they're already nuclear messaging, and with Crimea and Ukraine. What is SOF's role, and is it effective? And so I wanted to do a deep dive and to see what's from a deterrence perspective, understanding our nuclear capabilities as a country, and understanding our nuclear triad. Where does it say, based on National Security Strategy in 2018, General Mattis specifically states that Russia's main aim is to dissuade Western influence. And so with that being said, how can SOF contribute to the overall deterrence from the United States to Russia? And so I did, and so that was kind of like so I looked at it from a nuclear perspective, but also from a tactical perspective, because we have guys that are in Europe that are doing some great things. How is our tactical deterrence results coming up with strategic effects?
So you're looking into this while you're still at the training group, or you're thinking these things while you're still at the training group?
So I was thinking these things So I guess I was thinking about these things right when I got here, because the first thing they tell you, and after talking to my colleagues or the peers that have already graduated, is, John, the first semester, start thinking about what you want to do. And so what made me want to go down the nuclear realm was I was fascinated by nuclear weapons. And that's just something that when I got here, I remember that one of my first class was I just took a nuclear strategic weapons from Dr. Larson, and that was an awesome class. I took most of my classes were from National Security Affairs, Professor Moltz, Russian Foreign Policy, Dr. Tipson, Russia's military, all these different classes on Russia's nuclear threshold, their deterrent strategies, their military doctrine, Gerasimov's model, their hybrid warfare model, and how does nuclear messaging and Russia's nuclear arsenal plays a key role into their strategy. And so what I learned looking at all this stuff is how important nuclear weapons are, and really if a country and this is what I later learned in one of the classes in DA that I took from Professor Volpe. If a country has nuclear weapons, they have a say. They have a say at the table amongst all the superpowers. If the countries that do not, the non-state actors and the countries that don't have nuclear weapons, they're either going to try to get one, B, they're going to try to leverage some type of weapons of mass destruction, whether that's a chemical, biological weapon, or they'll find some other alternative. And so in order to get their voice heard or just to get credibility. And so I think after understanding that, for me, that fascinated me on why Iran, North Korea, these countries that are North Korea has a nuclear weapon, but also trying to get more enhanced. Iran on the other side trying to gain that capability. So for me, that was fascinating.
And how did this lead into your thesis?
So I first used how does SOF contribute to deterrence and assurance mission in Europe. So looking at I wanted to really look at our nuclear posture and really understand our nuclear capabilities, as a country. And so I wanted to see where were there some vulnerabilities. Again, based on the 2018 National Security Strategy, Russia's main aim is to weaken U.S. influence and divide the United States from its allies and its partners. So understanding that Russia has a large and diverse nuclear weapons, that complicates our relationship with NATO and also the United States as a whole, because of our stance. Like if we go to war, I mean it's going to be serious. So with that, I wanted to see as policymakers really leveraging SOF. And so what I did is I did a risk comparison, a risk assessment of SOF's core activities. And so there are currently 11 of them that are focusing on that I focus on. And so, hostage rescue, there are some that I really couldn't, it's hard to dive deep into those, but, foreign internal defense, direct action, civil affairs, unconventional, special reconnaissance, all these preparation for the environment, all these core tasks, are we really utilizing them to get more out of them? Are they getting the full brunt of what our capabilities can do? And so that's what I did is I used research. I just did case studies of what we're currently doing in these specific core tasks, but I also look at the biggest risk. So from a nuclear, if we were going to do a direct action along the Russian periphery, is that going to start things? Is that going to initiate escalation? Or can we use building partner capacity with our NATO SOF brothers, giving them capabilities to de-escalate? And so I looked at different methods. I looked at the Lithuanian Forest Brothers as an example. I looked at different resistance groups, resistance and resiliency groups. And I've learned that through sabotage, they're able to affect, through attrition, to affect the tide of a conflict. And so the Baltic states, really, that was one of the key things. They have several different things in place as their defense plan. So they have a kind of civilian people's defense plan where the large group and large the police and the bakery, they all have a role to play in case Russia was going to come across. And specifically Russia, they like to target the Russian communities along the Baltic states as kind of like as a way to get into the specific countries. So that's through media, that's through cyber attacks, and so they're going to leverage their those small communities. And so from a Baltic state, from their defense posture, they have to be very vigilant. Everyone has to be aware of some warnings and signals that may come out, and everyone has to have a role. And so these resistance techniques that I think SOF, Special Operation Forces, can be leveraged more because that's their design to do that. Their design, they come in small packages. They're not as compared to a conventional force, because we send in an entire 82nd. It builds a big footprint, and we don't want to escalate. So by sending in just a small unit, ODAs, about 12 guys, they go in. They have different and unique capabilities that are provided to build other forces.
Mm-hmm. So just curious, there's strong, as you mentioned, strong Russian communities in Lithuania. Some, from what I recall, 35% of the population or so. Are they included in the contingency plans of the Lithuanians?
I believe, and so I can't say because again, this is just from an unclass perspective,
Sure.
and just what I've been reading. They said all the civilians are at one point have a role into the plan, and I'm sure I know there's a vetting process or that sort of thing, but just understanding, and I think the Baltics and NATO, they understand that Russia. There's several different mechanisms how Russia's hybrid warfare and Russian aggression is being used. Cyber warfare, that's through their special operations, their little green men, how they start protests, or they start protests and they build relationships with specific regions, specific leaders to start protests, and so they can start an uprising. So we have cyber, we have uprising. That's through messaging, social media. They have biker gangs, and so what I've noticed is that they have biker gangs, and they have a specific flag along the Baltics and also in NATO countries. That these biker gangs are carrying the message that Putin wants.
Yeah.
It's very easy to see.
I was in Hungary for the last 5 years, and in Slovakia and Hungary, they're present.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, you can just see the messaging and where they're going and starting uprisings. The church, so the oligarch church. Messaging as well, but also it's just through small protests, and they're recruiting heavily in these Russian communities in order for them to continue their messaging and also continue with their national objectives. So they're fulfilling their tactical objectives that are meeting their strategic objectives. So it's very it's very real. It's going on, and again, I think that's where soft core tasks, when applied to achieve a comprehensive deterrent strategy against Russian aggression, could be vital in ensuring a couple things. It builds partner capacity. It provides institutional linkages. It provides a message to our U.S. partners and allies that U.S. is committed. U.S. is committed, and we're not going anywhere. And so, by leveraging SOF, all these things we're not only showing our commitment to our partners, but only the stability of the country and also to the stability of NATO, because again, Russia's main aim is just to weaken Western influence, specifically in NATO, and that's that's through any means necessary.
Now, your thesis communicates a very important message. Have you been able to get it in front of decision makers? So
yes, I've been able to brief it. I briefed it to several different policymakers. So I was able to brief it to Secretary Panetta here. When I interviewed him, he said it was a great topic, definitely something I should continue and try to get it into other policymakers. When I went to D.C., I went to the Carnegie. I briefed to the DASD at the time. I met with some other people from Washington, D.C. Also, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, they had a summer conference. It's called the Project on Nuclear Issues Summer Conference at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, which I was already a visiting scientist there doing work, and so I briefed it. They had a pretty large, so their base it's in Washington, and so with the COVID pandemic, they did a virtual conference, and so they asked, so they had different speakers present their topics, and then I briefed my thesis, and so I had a pretty good response when I briefed it, and I also had great questions as far as if you had a place anywhere, would SOF be postured, looking at your thesis and understanding Russia's capabilities and looking at NATO's vulnerabilities. Where could SOF better be used? Which was a great question, and I answered, definitely it makes sense. Poland, the Suwalki Gap, is the Achilles heel to NATO. Even though we have the enhanced postures spread out throughout a large, that Suwalki, that 60-mile corridor, where Russia can use the Belarus and to go through, that could be Achilles heel to our NATO partners. And so by building partner capacity and also by providing our brethren at the tactical level systems and processes so they can communicate that to their higher, I think that would better affect our NATO partners.
Just a quick side note: have you worked with the Grom at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
So, You said something there a second ago, and you just kind of went through it. Visiting scientist at Lawrence Livermore. Dude, I don't know how you do all these things, but tell me more about that. What are you doing up there?
So my number one, my thesis advisor, Zachary Davis. He's awesome guy. He's had a ton of experience in this working at Lawrence Livermore, but also in the policy realm. And so he's like the subject matter expert on deterrence, strategic deterrence. So I was blessed to have him. He's just he's an awesome guy.
He also wrote a book just on graduate studies, right? And graduate skills you need in graduate school, no?
Yes,
Yep.
he wrote several different books, Strategic Latency, with Michael Knott, and just several different writings and publications. And so just to get his perspective, and so he mentioned, hey, John, we have a bunch of scientists up here that would love to have a SOF, a Special Forces guy up here. So just consider coming up here and just talking to him. Come up here, do a walkabout, and we'll try to get you something set up post graduation. And so I kept on getting assistance from the staff here, Colonel Richardson, and the DA staff as well. And everything got approved, and so I was able to become a visiting scientist at Lawrence Livermore to further my research into some other projects, which was awesome.
And that's while you were stationed at NPS before your next assignment, essentially.
Correct.
Fantastic.
So I had a small break before I head out to my next assignment. So yes.
So you talk about research in almost fawning terms. I mean, sitting here talking with you, you really seem to get excited about it. Tell me, did you expect that when you first came to NPS? And follow-on question, what would you like to research next?
So I didn't expect that when I got here. To be honest with you, I just wanted family time when I got here. Hey, we're going to California.
Sure.
Let me get a surfboard. My family, we're on, I've been on the go. So we need to take a step back. I need to take a knee, and really, really invest in my family. My family, my wife, they've been, bearing the brunt of me going in and out and leaving, and so we really needed to take sit down together, figure out where we're going as a family, and just really heal, build relationships, and just have fun. There's tons of stuff to do on the West Coast, and so that's what I did. I just really try to make sure it was a great time. But when I got here, from my colleagues, they're like, yeah, just the best advice I got here was, hey, John, while you're here, make the best out of it. And so you're gonna get a lot of downtime with your family, but just make the best out of it. And so that's what I did. That's the best advice I'd give to guys that are coming in. The Army's paying for you to be here. They're paying for you to build how you think, and to take these classes and to understand the consequences of all these actions that are going on around the world. And so why not take the time, take a pause to really sit down. You really don't. The Army doesn't give you time to really. Everything's really compartmentalized, and so this is the time to really unpack all that and to really sit back and think about decisions that were made and some of the stuff that the policy that's going on, and to second guess it, and to second guess things that are going on, and to make it better. And so these classes that I took after getting his advice, it was awesome. It was the best advice I could take, and so that's why I took full advantage of. I took a different track, and so not only with the defense analysis classes, I took national security classes. I took some other classes with some business classes, because I just wanted to build me. When I leave here, I'm going to be a leader somewhere, and so with all these classes, it's just going to make me better. And so I'd rather be better. I want to be better for the next guy and for the troops that I'm going to be in charge of. I want to make sure that the decisions that I'm making, that I'm going to get them back to their families. And so by bettering myself, understanding the situation, understanding the risks that are involved, and understanding how they meet not only the intent, but also at the tactical level, but also at the strategic level, and also at the operational level, that makes me a better person and a better officer. And so I want to make sure that I'm embracing this time.
And you found a way to do that through your research?
I did, and so understanding, Russia. I really through my research, I really I was able to, no one can really understand the mindset of the Russian government. I'd be amazed if anyone did. I really would. Yeah. So to really understand like Putin's decisions and Gerasimov's model, to see like just understand their doctrine, their escalation doctrine. To look at it and just to ask questions about it, it gives you an understanding of kind of wow, that's, they're on a different playing field than we are. They're seeing things differently, just on a different playing field, and so it's just to understand like the decisions that they made, what they are surrounding themselves with, the leaders that they are, the investments that they are making with other countries. You can kind of see a blueprint of the direction on where Putin is going, or have an understanding of where he wants Russia, the country, to be at. Or rather, a formidable power. He wants to be on the same playing field as the United States. And so as they're making trade investments, as their economy, they're bolstering their military in the Caspian Sea, but also on the periphery of the NATO countries. And specifically, they're bolstering their nuclear weapons, their arsenal. You can kind of see where Putin wants. He wants a bigger stage. He wants a bigger platform. He wants respect from everyone else.
Well, they're setting themselves up to dominate the Arctic right now too. No?
Yeah, that too. Yes, and so it's just interesting for me. That's interesting. So I think that go back to your question. That's going to make me. That's going to make me better as a leader, understanding that at the strategic level, this is Russian aggression. This is the opponent that we're looking at, and this will make me better when I make those decisions as far as placing certain personnel to different locations and so forth.
So if you could write your next job description, what would you want to do for the next 3 years?
To be quite honest with you, I definitely want to, after been studying the Russian problem set for the 2 years, I guess my dream job would be in Europe with one of our soft NATO partners. Again, looking at what they have at their disposal and figuring out how to make them better. And understanding Russian aggression and Russia's model, figuring out ways now we can get them better. And I think a lot of times, from us, what hurts us from a U.S. perspective is our authorities and our policy. It limits what we can do, and so that's something that I would like to learn and get better at as a leader. But also when I see areas where we could fully leverage, where SOF can better contribute to the overall picture of how we're protecting our partners.
What keeps you up at night? Operationally, strategically thinking?
Tactically, what keeps me up at night, I have a 5-year-old. He wakes up at 4 a.m, climbs in to bed, and so I have very little leg room. What keeps me up at night? So every day, I'm always on the news, or I kind of see how the world is moving towards. Obviously, with the latest thing with COVID, that is among other things is it just alarms me to see like where are we going and how are we trying to fix it. I would say that's one. Another issue is to see China. What is China doing, and how their economy, and what it's in the South China Sea. What moves are they taking? Like they're building an island out there, and then the next what's the next thing? North Korea, Kim Jong-un. I know his sister is starting to take some of the leadership role. Is he going away? Are they doing? Is this are they looking at different measures? And obviously Russia, Iran. If Iran's ever, what's the situation in Iran? So I'm looking at all these opponents. I'm looking at like where are we going? What our adversaries are doing, and how are we making ourselves better as a country as a whole? I know there's a lot of things that we have to do to ensure that we're up to that challenge. And so I hope that we're able to come together, and then we're able to kind of look at these challenges.
Mm-hmm. This might be a tough one, but if you could write just one paper or make one presentation on a topic you haven't explored yet, or maybe the continuation of something you have explored, what would that paper or presentation title be, and what would be the general elevator speech on it?
I would have to look at SOF's role in great power competition with China and Russia, which countries that are really slow, that are making their moves. How can we leverage soft capabilities, soft core tasks to better meet the U.S. Strategic objectives, strategic and national objectives. And again, I think with SOF's capabilities and with our core tasks, there's so many things that we can do that are not being utilized. And I think if we could just relook at that, and again, there's certain things that I'm not that I haven't said before as far as policy that's currently out there. But I think that would probably my next paper that I'd have to look at. I did a paper for Lawrence Livermore. Dr. Zach Davis did a strategic latency on Russia's capabilities. I did publishing a chapter on Putin's weapon, the Great Little Green Men, or Spetsnaz, Special Forces, and how he uses them are widely different the way we use them. So the way he uses them for protests, starting cyber war and building uprisings, and it's those sabotage, those type of things. And and what I learned is that Spetsnaz, they're at each level. So they're at the Revolutionary Guard, they're with the military intelligence unit, they're with their Navy unit. There's different Spetsnaz throughout the Russian military, and they're used in different capacities, compared to the way the United States uses them to meet strategic objectives. But yet we don't use them the way Putin uses them because we have higher standards. So I don't look at that as a compare or contrast, but I look at that as, hey, are we fully leveraging what our capabilities are doing? I mean, we have great men and women that are out there training and doing some great things, and are we really utilizing the benefits of what they're doing?
Fantastic. What's the best investment in yourself that you've ever made?
The best investment, marrying my wife. That's number one. My faith, I've always been a big believer in my faith, and I dedicate that to my mom and dad. They really made sure that before I left the house, I made sure that my spiritual walk was there, and it was rooted, it was grounded, because life's going to change, but if your spiritual walk is rooted, you'll be fine, you'll be okay. And then having an awesome wife, Tia's been there. I mean, she's taking care of the family, taking care of me, takes care of the kids. So it's just been a pretty awesome ride. I could not imagine without her the ride that I would be on, because it's just it wouldn't have been that much enjoyable. But she makes it that much more. She makes it that much more better. So
awesome. What advice would you give to your 23-year-old self?
23-year-old self. That's a great question. So at 23, I started the Naval Academy at 21. I was pretty old, and I was at 23. I think I was starting my senior year, or finishing my junior year. And so, if I had to look back and tell him, it's not the destination, it's the journey, and you're going to meet a lot of great people, and you're going to lose a lot of great people. My sponsor mom passed away this year at the Naval Academy when I was there. She was like my second mom. And so I would just tell him to enjoy the moment, enjoy the now. Don't look too far ahead, because it's going to come, but really enjoy the now and make every effort to make those memories, because you may not have those people for a long time. So, yeah.
how is your 10? Wait, how old are you right now?
43.
Okay. How is your 53-year-old self going to be different from you right now?
I think I'm hoping to be a lot more smarter. A lot more smarter. Yeah. I'm hoping to be smarter. In 10 years, wherever I'll be. So hopefully my kids will be in college. I want to say the first will be in college, hopefully. And I think what's going to define how I am as a parent, the military is going to be an awesome experience, but one day the military is going to be, one day I'm going to walk away from the military. And so my best gift, the way that, like my report card is going to be my kids and them telling me, Dad, you're always there, or just seeing how successful they are is going to show like how I was as a parent. And so at 53, a good example or good way for me to see where I was is to see how my kids are, to see where they are in their schooling and college, how their grades, how are they building relationships, because I think life is about relationships, building relationships and making them work. We're on this thing called life as a community, and so we can't go through this by ourselves. So it's those relationships that really makes a big difference. And so by having these strong, awesome relationships, and so I think my kids, their response to how I was as a parent, as a dad, my wife, their response is going to be kind of like how I was or how I did. If I was horrible, if they were, if they got off the beaten path and they're just not doing good in school, then I messed up. I messed up the long way. If their spiritual walk's good and they're in school and good grades and they have their head on their shoulder and they have an idea of what they want to do, they're on track. I could look back and say, you know what, I did an okay job. I'm happy.
All right, last question. What is the one thing NPS students should take away from their time here? You mentioned one or two things already, but what would you say the one thing is?
I don't have like a one thing. I have a bunch of things, and I'll go off that. So the biggest thing, military's paying you to come here for higher education, strategic level thinking, to be at your next position. You're going to be making decisions, and so this is the best time to better yourself, to fill gaps that you weren't smart on, make yourself better. So once you move in that position, you're ready to go. You're ready to hit the ground running. Next thing is your family. Make sure your family is set. Take care of your family, because again, after here you'll be on the field again. So making sure that your family has everything, make enjoyable moments every weekend. Try to do something. Start little whatchamacallit. Every Thursday, do a game night. Every Friday, do a family night. Do walks. Coach your kids. I got to coach all my kids' sports: basketball, baseball, soccer. It was awesome. It's just once in a lifetime opportunity. I get a chance. Do those things. Take full advantage of it. Do everything, because you just don't know. Because when it's time's up, you'll have to get. When time's up and your unit calls you to deploy, they're going to look back at what you invested while you're back out here. And so it makes a big difference. If you are focusing on trying to get an A on that one paper, then spending 2 hours with your kids reading them a story, they're going to remember that. And you might remember that too. So those are little things. You can get straight A's here, not spend any time with your family, or you can get a B, a couple B's, get B's there, and then just have a blast and doing things. Buy a pop-up, buy a camper, go to the beach, go down to Cabo Robles, and really enjoy it. And again, really enjoy the family. So it's things like that. Take full advantage of the resources here, not only at NPS but also around here. You have Middlebury Institute, Lawrence Livermore National Lab. That's forward. You have Stanford and Berkeley. Try to build a network, so when you leave, if you want to pursue that following like a PhD, that might be something that you want to continue. So build a network and make sure you're in touch with those guys that can write a recommendation for you. professor or your thesis advisor. Stay in touch with them. Yeah.
Awesome, John. This was fantastic. Thanks for your time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us in the Trident Room. This episode was recorded on July 16th, 2020. For more information about today's guests and topics, please visit the show notes. The Trident Room has been brought to you by the Naval Postgraduate School Alumni Association and Foundation. For questions, comments, and suggestions, please email us at tridentroompodcasthost@nps.edu and find us online at nps.edu/tridentroompodcast.